80s, and then we'll hear from Sowore.
Thank you and good evening to everybody for coming to this event. I just want to quickly say that it's always a pleasure, Josh, to be part of Amnesty International events, and I will do everything I can whenever possible to be part of this. After we had a conference last week, I did something unthinkable, which is going back to Nigeria. I actually just came back from Nigeria 3 days ago. The difference is that just like everybody travels through their own airport, I have my own airport, which is traveling on the ground in Nigeria. If I got caught as of last week, you'll be campaigning to get me out of jail by now. But I'm back safely, but with a wall of dust and exhaust fumes in my system. I come from Nigeria, and I'm always very proud to say, and to make you understand it a bit, I tell people that I come from Nigeria by way of New Jersey, because that's where I live now. I've been here since the year 1999, and exactly 10 years before 1999, in 1999 I got admission to the University of Lagos. But we had a different set of challenges in those days. It was military rule. And our job as young people, inspired by the fresh Tiananmen Square protest, was to drive the military out of power in Nigeria to give our people the broadest possible fundamental rights, especially the one of democracy and the right to choose their own leaders. We thought it was going to be something that would take just a few protests. It didn't happen. It took me 10 years in Nigeria. Out of that 10 years, I went to jail 8 different times. I like to make a distinction between where I find myself or how I define my experiences. I do not see myself largely as a prisoner of conscience because I didn't spend a lot of time in prison, like many other people who have spent a great deal of time in prison. But I describe myself mostly as a victim of torture. And torture sometimes can be worse than spending a long time in prison, because whereas prison is meant to break you over time, torture is meant to break you at once. And it's the most difficult experience anybody can have, because there you are combining being restricted, unable to go anywhere, with the fear of constant beating and abuse by authorities. And I went through it so much that by the time I came here in 1999, I thought life was over. But I checked into a program in New York for survival of torture, and that's how I became part of the system here. And also part of Amnesty International campaign since 2000, which was a renewed campaign against torture. And it took me to almost all the states in the U.S. Sometimes I went to certain cities more than 10 times just to talk about my personal experiences. And what were they? It was that I led legitimately and peacefully student movements and protests against the military. And the only weapon we would have, if we had anything at all, would be figs of leaves, with which we peacefully sang and protested against the military, singing songs that tells people that military rule is bad for Nigeria. Because Nigeria did not only have military rule at that time, corruption was rampant. We are one of the largest exporter of oil, as you must have heard. The 6th largest exporter of oil to the US, and one of the 6th largest in the world. But it's ironic that just as we make more money from oil, our environment becomes destroyed, and the money that we make from oil goes into buying weapons for the military, which they in turn use in oppressing the people of Nigeria, of which I became a major victim in those days. But there are several of them, and I'm not, like I keep saying, not the most qualified. A lot of people have been broken beyond the point that they can even talk about their experiences. But that's the idea of torture. And of course, it's the reason why they keep people behind bars for a long period of time. And I would say that I did not know about Amnesty International in those days very much, except on one occasion when I had my second arrest, in which I was held in a detention facility in Lagos that is known as an inter-center. It's an inter-center, they call it inter-center, but it's actually a detention facility that is built within a cemetery. And if they're taking you there, it will be as if you are going to be buried. And then they will make a detour, and this facility comes up. And when you had nothing to do, you start screaming your name with your nail on the wall. Because everybody who's been through that place tried to write their name on the wall. So I spent a lot of time trying to scribble my name on the wall so that whatever happens, somebody will know that I passed through that experience. Because they will never admit, it's never on record that you're detained there. And one day, when I got to SOW, which is my last name and which everybody calls me by, the guy who was my detention officer only communicated with the State Security Service, secret police, by radio. And he said, they have heard that my case had become an international case. And I said, how is that possible? Because nobody even know where I'm at. And he said, well, Amnesty International and the U.S. Embassy had been calling for my release. And I was very shocked and surprised at the same time. So when I came out of here to the U.S., one of the things that I wish I did was to be able to use my experiences to tell the story, to mobilize people in this country at that time who were becoming frustrated that letter writing wasn't doing anything to free prisoners of conscience. And I said, no, you don't even have an idea. If you have a government that spends half of its time trying to get rid of letters that are written by Amnesty members, they are really worried that those letters means a lot to getting things done. And it was at the time, also in the 2000s when I came here, that young people were also beginning to get their own answer about letter writing, because it was the advent of internet and social media. And I spent time trying to explain to them that instead of using social media to look for partners, they could actually use it to free people. Because that's one of the best convictions I had as a student activist. It was taking a decision about between going to a party where I was supposed to find a girlfriend that would last me for 4 years in college, and going to a meeting that would free the country so that people could recognize and have a right to choose whomever they want. And that made a whole lot of difference. So this is just a short story about the importance of what you do. In 2001, after September 11, I can never forget this, I was invited by an Amnesty group to come and speak somewhere in Connecticut. And the principal asked me to join him at home the day before. I thought it was about meeting his family. And when it was a little bit late, he came to me and said, we love the way you speak, but don't talk about torture or don't say anything that will offend the U.S. government. This country is not in the mood at this time to talk about freedom as you used to before September 11. I almost wept because I could never believe that people could be that short-sighted to think that national security will ever any day trump fundamental human rights. But I gathered enough strength to say to him, I said, the reason why I must start out there tomorrow and speak about this is because you live in the U.S. and you're afraid of your government. Nobody should be afraid of their own government. And no reason should allow you or should make you have to think about not speaking out against power. Because that is why Amnesty International exists. If I'm not able to speak my mind tomorrow, I'll go back home, where I come from, in New Jersey. And I did. And it made a whole lot of difference. Some of the kids I spoke to there have gone to college, some of them have graduated. And they write me all the time and say, thank you that you stood up and said to the world what needed to be said when nobody wanted to speak. So this is to say to you, great thanks for what you do. It's really, really important. And I'm always glad to say that you have changed the world, and the world is not going to be the same again simply because you write letters. It's not just letters. It is freedom that you write on paper and send to different parts of the world. Thank you.
We'll be hearing from Bill Schultz in a minute, who was our